Greetings from Vienna, Austria, and welcome to our June MOOC on Tricentis Tosca initial setup. I am Trang Le, training consultant, and with me is Bertram Thonhauser, our senior consultant. Bertram has been working for the company since 2012, and he has a lot of experience in supporting customers for setting up and rolling out Tosca. Some of you who join our MOOC on a regular basis will have heard this many times, but since there are some people joining us for the first time, please allow me to talk about our housekeeping rules. All participants will be muted during the session. As there are hundreds of you currently attending, obviously everyone talking would be confusing and hard to follow. There's a control panel at the bottom of your screen. You can restore the window, hide or show the video player, the Q&A box, as well as looking at the speaker bio. Even though you are muted, we do encourage you to ask questions during this session. Please use the before mentioned Q&A box. There will be a Q&A session at the end of the MOOC. Therefore, we will hold the most interesting question for that, so everyone can profit from the answers. We will, however, answer as many questions as possible during the session, but please be aware that only questions related to the current topics will be covered. Please keep in mind that, given the numbers of attendees, we might not be able to answer all of your questions during this session. Lastly, let me state that this session will be recorded and will be shared on our website as well as our video channels later. And now, without further ado, here's Bertram Thonhauser.
Thank you, Trang. Let's start with a short overview what you will hear in this MOOC. I will describe a little bit the initial situation, what I prepared for this MOOC, and afterwards I would like to demonstrate a Tricentis Tosca basic installation. I will show you quickly where you can download Tosca, the Tricentis Tosca installation packages. Then we will run through the installation of Tricentis Tosca server. We will go with the license server online mode. Afterwards, I will guide you through an installation of Tosca Commander. Both of the things we will also do with installing the latest batch version. Next would be activating licenses online. Then we will prepare the database for the multi-user mode. A little bit is already prepared from my side, so the database is set up. The only thing what we have to do is to execute the scripts in the database. Next would be creating a workspace, so we will connect to the common repository. And last but not least, I want to show you LDAP, synchronization user and user groups with LDAP. Let's take a look at a normal situation on a customer side. Typically, you have one server, which is the server for the database, where you will install your common repository. On the other side, you might have a second server where Tricentis Tosca server will be installed with all its features depending on your needs. And of course, you also need client machines. This might be a physical machine, this might be a virtual machine or Citrix, where you install Tosca Commander for your automation agents. That's a typical customer situation. What did I prepare for this MOOC? I prepared two virtual machines. The client machine has the operating system Windows 10 x64, and the server for installing Tricentis Tosca server, we have Windows Server 2016 with, again, x64. Let's take a look at the overview what I prepared so far. So as I said already, the database is already available. For that, we used SQL Server 2017. Client machine, only the virtual machine is available without any installation of Tosca so far. That will be the picture from the final situation after we were running through the whole MOOC. So what we will have done is we will have installed the Tosca server, not with all features, as you can see here. We only will run through the installation for the Tosca license server and the Tosca license administration. As you can see here, a lot of other features are included. That would be, for example, Tosca Analytics, distributed execution, Explorer testing server, and so on. On the other hand side, on the client machine, we will install Tosca Commander. On both of the machines, we will also install the latest batch version, which is available. Of course, before you start with a Tosca installation, you also need to check the system requirements which are necessary. Let's take a quick look at it. On the Tosca Commander side, on the client machine, you can install Tosca Commander on a physical machine, on a virtual machine, or on Citrix. Operating system must be Windows 7 or above. CPU minimum requirement is E5 with 2.4 gigahertz. RAM, we need 8 gigabyte of RAM, and for free hard disk space, it should be 5 gigabytes. On the Tosca server side, the operating system is Windows 7, Server 2012 or above. As I already mentioned, we will go with Windows Server 2016. From the CPU size, we need E5 with 2.4 gigahertz. From RAM, the minimum requirement is 4 gigabyte of RAM. And for the free hard disk space, we need 8 gigabyte. On the database side, supported is MS SQL Server, Oracle, or DB2. In this MOOC, only relevant for us are multi-user repositories. What I also want to show to you is which boards and protocols are used. As you can see here, for example, for the license communication, the HTTP protocol is used, and the port 7070 must be opened for the communication between Tosca Commander and the Tosca license server. From the database side, we go with the protocol TCP, and the port 1433 for MS SQL Server must be opened to communicate between the Tosca Commander and the common repository. So now I would like to start with the demonstration. The first thing what I would like to show to you is where can you download the Tosca Commander package and the Tricentis Tosca server package. In that case, a prerequisite is that you have already registered on our Tricentis support page and that you have your user credentials available. So you can choose here from the menu support and visit support from the submenu. As you can already see, I am already logged in with my credentials, and here you can choose the downloads button from the menu. In the products downloads field, you see the current version, the latest version of Tricentis Tosca, Tricentis Tosca server. So you easily can select it, click on it, and save it to your computer. What you also can see here is the batch versions can be also downloaded from these sections. If you might ask, where can I find the installation package for Tricentis Tosca server, you can go to View All Downloads, and it will be available here. Since I already downloaded the package, let's go to the server. As you can see here, the server package are already downloaded, and now we can directly start with the installation, with our first part, with the installation of the Tricentis Tosca server. One important note what I want to say here is that local admin rights are required to install the Tricentis Tosca server. So in that case, I always recommend to do it in that way, that you make a right click on the installation file and you run it as an administrator. The first thing which will happen is Tricentis Tosca server needs some prerequisites to work properly. So this will be checked in one of the first screens. In the overview screen, you can see, okay, which are the missing components, which are the things which needs to be installed before we can directly install the Tricentis Tosca server. So to proceed, we can quickly click on the install button. In some cases, it might be possible or necessary that the machine must be restarted. So the next screen which will appear is the installation wizard screen. To proceed here, we can select the next button. Afterwards, we come to the license agreement screen. We have to accept the license agreement to proceed. Again, we click on the next button. Next would be the screen regarding Tosca diagnostics. In the Tosca diagnostics dialog box, you can choose whether you would like to enable Tosca diagnostics or not. We go with the default selection and click on next. Here in this screen, you can select the installation directory. If you want to install Tricentis Tosca server in a directory other than the default directory, you can click on change. We will go with the standard directory and proceed with next. As I mentioned at the beginning, in this example, we only want to install the Tosca license server and the Tosca license administration. So we disable all other checkboxes. To proceed, we have to click again on next. Of course, we also have to configure our selection. To proceed here, we have to click on configure and the screen appears where we make the selection for our shared settings. You can go with HTTP or HTTPS. We go with HTTP. We need to enter a port here. When you click on check, you can check if the port is available or not. And for the data directory, we go with the default one. As I said, we go with online license activation. The default port which is used is 77. We see that the port is available. Here in the username section, we have to enter a username. And in the password section, we have to enter a valid password. If the password is valid, you can click on next to proceed. We are almost done with our installation. Finally, we click on next and the next screen which appears is a configuration overview screen. Here you can see all the selection you made before. A good hint from my side is to make a screenshot here, since this gives a nice overview regarding all your configuration. Then we can proceed with clicking on Install. This will take now a few minutes. Since this is one part of our whole installation, in the meanwhile, while this is working, we can go to our client machine and start with the installation of Tosca Commander. So let's go to the client machine. Again, I already prepared the installation files. So these files are already available in this virtual machine. And we can directly start with the installation of Tosca Commander. Again, I want to mention here that local admin rights are required to install Tosca Commander. So let's do it in the same way. Let's select Run as Administrator from the context menu. The first thing which will happen in the background is again a check if all prerequisites are met. Let's see what happens if already all prerequisites are installed or if we have to install it before. Since the screen didn't appear, we can directly go with the installation. So the welcome screen appears and we can click on Next to proceed. Again, we have to accept the license agreement. The Tosca diagnostics dialog appears. We already know it from the Tricentis Tosca server installation. We will go with the default installation and we will enable, or the checkbox is already enabled. Here you can again change the destination folder. We will go with the standard directory. Here in this selection, we have to choose which folders should be chosen for the Tosca projects and which path or directory should be chosen for the user-defined settings. Important to mention here is that all Tosca users for this computer need to have write access on the Tosca projects folder. If you want to change it, you can click on this button here. We go with the default selection and proceed with next. This screen gives you an overview which types of installation are possible. Tosca Commander will perform a default installation. Slim Execution Agent will install Tosca without classic engines, and custom lets you choose the component what you want to install. Since we make a basic installation here, we select Tosca Commander. Clicking on Next, we can proceed, and finally we can click on Install. Again, this will take a few minutes until the installation is finalized. Let's check in the meanwhile if the installation from Tricentis Tosca server is already done. So I will change back to my other virtual machine. And as we can see, the installation of Tricentis Tosca server is already finalized. We can click on Finish here, and since I selected Open the browser, what we can see here is the landing page. You get a nice overview which are the installed sites, which are the installed components, and which are the installed services. Here in the bottom, you see, okay, what is the Tricentis Tosca version you installed. Important to mention is that when you go with Tricentis Tosca server installation and Tosca Commander installation, that both of them have to be the same version. Meaning it would not work when you have Tosca Commander then .3 installed and Tricentis Tosca server 11.0. So Tricentis Tosca server and Tosca Commander must always have the same version. Since we also want to go with the latest available batch, we can install the batch 01 for the Tricentis Tosca server on this machine. Let's make again a right click on it and let's run it as an administrator. Yes, the only thing what we have to do here, we have to click on the update button to start our installation for the batch 01 for Tricentis Tosca server. In the meanwhile, we can check if our Tricentis Tosca Commander installation is already finished in our client virtual machine. It's not finished, so let's wait until this is finalized. Finally, it's done. We can click on Finish. And as already said at the beginning, we also downloaded batch 02 for the Tosca Commander. Important to mention here is please always check the README file. As you can see here, to go with batch 02, the minimal requirement is that on Tosca server batch 01 is installed. In that case, you should have no troubles. So let's start the installation of batch 02 for Tosca Commander. Again, I will run it as an administrator. To proceed, we have to click on Update. This screen appears and says that one service is running. We can keep the default selection and click on OK to proceed. Let's check in the meanwhile if our Tricentis Tosca batch 01 installation is finalized. So I will go to our Windows Server machine. And as we can see, the installation is already finished. Again, I click on Finish and enable the selection for Open Tosca browser. Here we see now that batch 01 is installed. If you might ask, which is the service or where can I find the service which is running, you can easily open the service side, and the relevant service which we saw in this overview screen is the FlexNet license server service. So this is the service for our license server. Let's check if the batch installation for our client is already done. And as we can see, it's already done. Let's click on Finish. So what we have done so far is we installed the Tricentis Tosca server with the latest batch version and Tosca Commander with the latest batch version. The client Tosca Commander on the Windows 10 machine and the Tosca server on our Windows Server 2016 machine. So the next step would be now to activate the licenses online. How can we do that? So in that case, we are now on the client and start our Tosca Commander. Again, on this screen, we see which version and which batch is installed. And since we didn't activate the licenses so far, we came to this first screen. One prerequisite is to activate your licenses that one person is responsible for the licenses, meaning one person from your company, from your partner, might be the license administrator. This person will get the entitlement in the license overview. I quickly want to show you now where can I find the entitlement. So in that case, you see that I am again on the Tricentis support page. Again, I am already logged in, and you can select My Assets and the License Overview. In this License Overview, you see here the section Entitlement. I choose now the relevant license for me, and what I need is the activation ID and also the amount how much licenses I have and how much licenses I want to activate. You can click on a clipboard to copy the ID to the clipboard and enter it in Tosca Commander. Let's go back to our client machine. Since we are using a self-hosted license server, meaning it's not a cloud license server, we have to choose on this screen other options. On the next screen, we can say activate. Here you see a question, where do you want to install your licenses? We want to install it on a self-hosted license server. It's already selected, so we click on OK. Here we enter the activation ID and the amount is the correct one. And we click on activate licenses. The next screen shows up and we have to enter the information for the license server. I prepared it in my virtual machine. So our license server is the server where we installed our Tricentis Tosca server. Let's enter the host name here and the default port, which is 7070. And let's click on OK. And finally, we see that our licenses are activated. So that was the first step we have done for a basic installation. The next thing what I would like to show to you is to prepare the database for the multi-user mode. So let's go back to our Tricentis Tosca server virtual machine. What I quickly want to show you now is the already prepared database. And this is normally a task which is done from a database admin internally from your company. Here below databases, you can see the Tosca initial setup database, and that will be the database which we will use for our common repository. What we have to do now is we have to prepare our database with tables. In that case, we can take a SQL script and execute it in the database. So where can I find the SQL script? The SQL script can be found in the Tosca Commander installation directory. So in that case, we have to go back to our client virtual machine and we go to the Tricentis home installation directory. Here in the SQL directory, depending on your database, you have to choose the right selection. Since we are going with MS SQL Server, we open this folder here, and here we find create tables for MS SQL Server. So what I will do now, I will open this in Notepad. I will copy it, and I will move back to my Tricentis Tosca server. Important to mention here is that in some cases, depending on your policies, the database administrator may have to adjust this script. For the basic installation, we are fine. We are selecting here the right database. Then we select new query from the menu. We paste the copied script and we click on execute. And as we can see, the query was executed successfully. There is another thing what we recommend. We recommend also to activate snapshot isolation. All these scripts, and these are only two small scripts, can be found also on our support page. I already prepared it here for me. So I open now the notepad file and copy these two scripts, which activate the snapshot isolation. Again, I select new query, I paste it here. Sorry, something went wrong. I copy the script and I paste it here. I already prepared the right database name and I click on execute. And again, we get the message that the query was executed successfully. So we are done now with our fourth step. We prepared the database for the multi-user mode. We can close the SQL Server Management Studio and we can go back to our virtual machine where Tosca Commander is installed. One of the last steps is now we want to create a workspace. In that case, since Tosca Commander is already opened, we click on the New button. And what we can see on this screen, on the first combo box, you can select which type of repository, which type of database you are using in your company. In our case, we are going with MS SQL Server, and here in the connection string section, we have to enter now the connection to our database. I already prepared the connection string for the database. I copy it from the notepad and enter the connection string in this section. To test the connection, you can click on the test connection button. And we got the feedback that the connection is valid. Important to mention here is the first time when you create a workspace and connect to the common repository, we have to disable this checkbox here. Finally, we only have to give a right name for the workspace. In our case, I will go with Tosca initial setup. And I will also choose use workspace template, which imports automatically some test fragments, meaning the default, the standard modules, some examples regarding virtual folders, and some more things. I can click on the OK button. And as we can see, it's successfully created. Automatically, we came to the login page. One user which exists per default is the administrator user, and we can click on the login button to log in to the workspace. So we are done with the next step. We have, as mentioned in the overview, we have installed the Tricentis Tosca server, we have installed Tosca Commander, we activated our licenses online, we prepared our database, and we created our workspace. Finally, I want to show you the LDAP synchronization. So where you can synchronize user and user groups via LDAP. How can this be done? In that case, we have to select the project root element, and this element must be checked out, which means you must have a green icon here. With a right click on the project root element and selecting Synchronize LDAP objects, a new window appears. Here in this field, in the search field, we have to enter our group, which we want to synchronize with Tosca. Clicking on the search button, it will go to the Active Directory to search for this group, and to add the group to the objects which should be synchronized. You can do it with a double click or with a right click and selecting Add to Synchronize from the context menu. The last thing what we have to do, we have to click on the Synchronize button. And where can I check if my group is now synchronized with Tosca Commander? Every admin has the user management tab here. We can select this tab and we see that our LDAP group is now synchronized with Tosca Commander. Let's check if this works finally. In that case, I have to save everything to the database. I can do that via clicking on Check in All. I will close this workspace. Now I will open it again, and what we see, LDAP synchronization was successfully. I get here my username, so what Tosca is using now, the Windows credential from this virtual machine. Clicking on Login, it's working the same way, and I have opened my workspace now. So this was the final part of this MOOC. That's it from my side. I only want to mention one thing. Please check our homepage on a regular basis. There will be short introductions, videos available soon around the topic Quick Setup Guide, which will help you to set up different things in the easiest way, in the right way at your company. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much. Let's move on to answer some questions. I already have a couple of interesting questions from the viewer with me for you. First of all, do I also need to consider the minimum requirement of the system under test?
Yes, Dan, you need to do it. On the one hand side, there are the system requirements for Tricentis Tosca, and on the other hand side, the system requirements for the SUD. So you always need to take care about this.
Is it possible to create a customized Tricentis Tosca installation package for centralized or unattended installation?
Yes, this is possible. What is provided from Tricentis Tosca is a setup, a method to complete the installation without any user interaction. This is called unintended installation. How is this performed? This can be performed by invoking the installer from the command line.
Is it possible to connect to a common repository or a database via VPN from Europe to the US?
Yes, of course, this is possible, but please consider network latency.
How does the communication with the common repository or database work?
That's a very good question. Um, the answer is that it is a direct communication. So it's a direct communication between Tosca Commander and the database. So the communication is not done via Tosca Commander, application server and the database.
Is it possible to install Tricentis Tosca or Tricentis Tosca server without administrator rights?
No, this is not possible. As already mentioned in my demonstration, and I said it a few times, to install Tricentis Tosca or Tricentis Tosca server, local admin rights are required. Furthermore, write permissions are also required on the Tosca projects directory to use Tricentis Tosca. Write permissions must be available for all users.
Once again, thank you very much for sharing your valuable knowledge with us today. Before we come to an end, I would like to remind you of our upcoming MOOC, which will cover test planning. The session will be on June 27, 2018. As always, we will have 2 sessions to cover different time zones. Also, I would kindly to ask you to please complete the feedback at the end of this session. If you have any further question or inquiry not covered in this MOOC, please contact our support or training department, as well as check out the knowledge base at support.tricentis.com. We can also be reached on social media platforms such as Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you next time.